Welcome back to Elvis and the Legends, and of course, Rare Was Photos, my sister channel. I wanted to bring you this interview. Now, this interview here is Lucy de Barbin and Desiree doing a radio interview. And these shirts are funky, aren't they? Sometimes it's hard to keep them looking like they're not all tattered up. But there's a lot of interesting stuff said in this interview. And we don't have a great... Well, we've been reading Are You Lonesome Tonight? For those that are new subscribers. Over on Rare Was Photos. I've been talking with Desiree. We've been talking with Desiree Matera, the author of Are You Lonesome Tonight? You know, and I'm trying to find as many pieces of publicity, in a sense. You know, Lucy talking, Desiree talking, back when they had their book tour. For us to examine, because, you know, there's a lot of people that doubt the story. And there's a lot of people that believe the story. But I'm of the opinion that we all need to have an informed opinion. There's a lot of misinformation that's out there regarding this book. Bill Burke was one of those that actually posted blatant lies on his website. I think it was called Elvis World or something, which I don't understand. I don't understand him being a journalist, why he couldn't read the book and understand that the word mountain was never put in there, but yet he claimed a mountain. How absurd, there's no mountains in Memphis. A hill. A hill can be 20 feet high, 50 feet high, 75 feet high. They're everywhere. Tennessee has rolling. If you've driven down Interstate 40, you'll see it. And he drove outside of town. But he said a bunch of other stuff too, and stuff that wasn't even in the book at all. So that's where a lot of misinformation, just had a coughing fit, so sorry about that. That's where a lot of misinformation comes from, I think, was from him, a historian. And people just took it at face value that he was being honest and truthful. And I just don't understand how somebody can make that many mistakes and have an intelligent mind. He must have been doing it on purpose, paid by somebody or something, influenced to do it. Anyhow, let's get back to this interview, and I really want to hear what you have to think about it. Please listen to it all the way through the end and enjoy the photos. I'm enjoying it, and I hope you are too. And find me over in Rare Elvis Photos if you're brand new here. It's at Rare Elvis Photos, and if you came from Rare Elvis Photos, good to see you. All right, TCB, and by the way, keep throwing those requests in, and I'll try to do as many as I can. I think I'm going to be singing The Wonder of You possibly today. There are songs that Elvis sings that I can't handle, and I'll be honest about that. His range is different, and I got to change it up a little bit. Here's the interview of Lucy de Barbin and Desiree Presley without further ado.
Why has the story not come out before?
I never intended it for it to come out at all, Bill, but because of circumstances and things that happened within the last 5-6 years, I decided that this was a time to do it because I was sort of, I don't want to say forced into it, but I was pursued. Desiree was pursued very, very strongly. And also I felt like I owed it to Desiree. I had to tell her the story that she never did know behind her father and my relationship. And I wanted her to know it in details. And it was so difficult to even tell Elvis that I couldn't tell her, surely, unless I put the details, because it was very hurtful and still is to talk about certain events and things that happened and why we had to do it. So I had to put it on paper in details so she could see the dark side, I call it, of my life and the circumstances and why I made the decisions I did, and to see a beautiful side of her father, which I didn't think everybody knew about. And I did want them to know that, and I wanted her in particular to know about it.
It's unfair of me to ask in just the few minutes that we have to describe the kinds of feelings that you had, because you'll never be able to have enough time to describe them fully.
I know. Do you mean from the beginning, Bill?
Feel free to pick it up at any point along the way.
I think that Elvis was probably one of the greatest inspiration in my life. Not because he was Elvis Presley, because when I first heard his name, I thought it was an odd name, but because he was the man, if I would dream up a person to fall in love with, would have been that type of person, because he had all the attributes that I would want in a person. The humanity, the gentleness, the love, the consideration for other people, the reason why he wanted to be successful or make his life successful was for others. All this made me fall in love with him long ago. And because of circumstances, and I know it has to be brief, we went on to fall in love very deeply, and there was always something between it. Needless to say, my circumstances in past. And then in later years, we had a separation for 10 years because of my circumstances again and his, and I felt like I had to make the decision. Then went on to, he kept looking for me and found me, and we got back together on a basis of we had to explain to one another because we felt like we still love one another, but we were honorable to our commitments for a time, and then we made decisions that we had to live with the consequences, and knew what our limitations were and what we could or couldn't do because of circumstances and because of my children, my family, that I couldn't let the whole world attack them or his career. And we were building lives, both of us, although Elvis always wanted to come out with our relationship in public. He honored my wishes, and I loved him more for that.
Desiree, this unfolded how for you?
Well, when I first found out who my father was when I was 17. And then at 19, I sent off my birth certificate and started using the name Presley. And I didn't know any of the facts. And it was a very hard decision for me to go to Mother and get her to tell me, because I knew it was very painful for her. And she had actually never told me that Elvis was my father yet. She actually didn't tell me till 1982. And at this point, I was going by the name Presley, and everyone that I encountered always asked me, "Are you related to Elvis?" And I would say yes, but I was very uncomfortable because I didn't know the facts surrounding it. And, you know, it's very, it's a big thing to say, I'm Elvis Presley's father, and you don't know how, you know what I'm saying? So, finally, this Jerry Matera, the co-author, he approached me. He got a tip from someone that I was Elvis's daughter, and followed me for about a year, wrote letters, and so finally I agreed to meet him and ask him what he intended to do with the story. And he asked me so many questions. I said, I don't know. I didn't have any answers for him. So finally I gave him Mother's number and had him call Mother. And I was so afraid. I thought Mother was going to kill me. And it ended up, she agreed to meet him, and she liked him very much.
I agreed to meet him, Bill, because I thought, I'm going to get him off of her back. How dare him enter into our lives and try to expose. It was hurtful. And I knew that, of course, still protecting her and knowing who she was and how important Elvis was to the world, that they would try to exploit her like they did him. And no, they couldn't know because I had to tell her. But it was hard for me to tell her until 1982, when something pushed me into telling Desiree, because she came right out, and that was the most assertiveness she has ever shown in her life. You can tell, Bill, about how I told you if you'd like.
I was invited to, we were living in L.A. at the time, and I was invited to a party that, it was my lawyer's party, and there was a lot of Hollywood people there. And Mother said, please don't go. And I said, but why? She says, just please don't go. I don't want you exploited. And I said, why? She says, because of your father. I said, who was my father? Because I wanted to hear my mother say it, to tell me. And she said, Elvis Presley. And I said, I know. She says, no, but you don't know the whole story. And it's a beautiful story, and I'll tell you someday. But even then, it was very painful for her.
This is very interesting. We're just a little over halfway in. What do y'all think right now? What are you hoping that this interviewer asks Lucy and Desiree? What have you heard so far in here that makes you believe or doesn't believe it as much?
Her, to come out and tell me, because it wasn't just one time that they were together. It was a love story, many years.
I didn't want Desiree to think that I met Elvis. We had an affair, and he left, and that was it. I wanted her to know there was not easy times. Our relationship was something that was apparently had to be the way it was. I'm a firm believer that whatever case it are, whatever will be, will be. And we weren't meant to be together always, but as much as we could. But I wanted her to know that she was born out of great love. But there was details. But it's hard to tell a young girl, now look, this was special. Sure, everything's special. She wanted me to tell her. And I never could tell her. I said, you have to know the whole story, because there were bad times for us. There were hard times. And I wanted her to understand why we had to be separated, why I wasn't with him, why that we didn't get married, things like that. And I couldn't do it, Bill, just sitting down and telling her. I couldn't do it today if I had to just tell her everything, and she knows that. I went so far as after meeting Derry Matera, I thought I have to go through this, and he will not be the right one, and no, I won't write this book. This is all in my mind, confirmed. I will not write anything, and he will not get a story. I will tell him to back away and leave my daughter alone. But he was very nice, and I'm not naive to where I just can swallow everything like that, but he respected me and left me alone for a while, and he said, promise me you will just try to think about it, and I did. I said no to myself. And then I started thinking, I owe this to Desiree. And I spoke to Uncle Vester about it even, who I love very much, and he was very close to Elvis, and he said, well, you owe it to her. You better think about what it'll do to her. And but if you have something good, and you had something good with Elvis, why don't you tell it? So, and then Ronald Tennant, who's a good friend of ours, said, why are you not telling it? And I said, because I didn't have people taking pictures of us together. It was secret. I wanted to remain a secret. And he said, why? You have to tell. Because Desiree needs to know. She needs to know. So I made a set of tapes and told as much of the story, and it took me 4 years to do this. And telling her in details, and completely devastating me, because I had to open doors I had closed long ago because I didn't want to think about it, except for the nice parts of it. And I did, in case something would happen to me, that she would never get the story. And I told Desiree to put them in a vault, which she did. Then started writing notes and writing pads, and then working with Derry night after night after night after night, and then finally saying, I'm not going through with this. I don't want the world to know about this. It can't be. And, it was very difficult for me. I'm not trying to be noble, but it was very hurtful to tell things that I didn't want anyone to know. But if she knew, she would have to be defending herself. Yes, I am. And so why not tell the world? And why am I not being, I don't mean myself, but why is it so hard for the public? I don't mean the public exactly, but the people that has had controversy about this to accept something that could be good about Elvis when they have accepted all the bad things written about him. It baffles me. But again,
it happens so with every famous person, be it Elvis or Frank Sinatra, who
right.
You name it. People come out of the woodwork and say, well, yes, we had an affair back then, and this is Frank Sinatra's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And you've, I'm sure, had that.
Sure.
And people, the backlash. I've read some stories on the wire already that there are people who are challenging all the claims that are in the book. And Villard is standing behind you, to their credit.
Right.
Is this difficult for you? What we're doing right now? Do you enjoy going on tour, talking about it?
I don't enjoy any publicity. First of all, I have to be honest, because I'm a business person. If it's business, I love it. It's fine, in my life. But when it's centered on my personal life and publicity, I don't like it. I don't like pictures of myself. I don't like. And it's very difficult to talk about this because I do not. But no, and I don't mind it, Bill, because I know it has to be done, and I certainly owe it to the publishers and to Desiree and to Elvis, and I know that.
I think it would be hard for any of us to go public in such a massive scale.
I know.
And expose the details that all of us would just logically want to keep.
That's right.
Regardless of who it was that we'd been in love with.
And Elvis, I didn't even want to use his name, nor did I want to use, I wish I could have used John Jones, which is, what he always went by when he called me. And and things. But and he always was disguised when we met, and he always respected and honored me for wanting to be secret. But because even if he wanted it to be different, he did respect that.
Desiree, I'm wondering, has your mother's fear materialized? Have you been exploited?
No, I haven't had too much of it yet. We've been on the tour and been quite busy on the tour, and it's been very positive. People's reaction has been very good.
You're able to lead a normal life? People don't hound you? The National Enquirer isn't hiding behind your bushes or something?
There's been a few hiding behind the bushes, but
yes.
they've been fairly kind as well.
It occurred to me that if Desiree Matera had worked for the National Enquirer, instead of being the reputable journalist that he apparently is, this could have ended up completely different.
Oh, believe me, I thought about that too, and I told him in a very nice way to back away and stay away, and then he proved himself, because that's what I feel about every human being. You can't really judge them, and his credibility came through, because I know that he's had a difficult time writing this with me, because I didn't want to give him all the facts, the dark side, my early age. I fought like crazy to keep that out.
Were you I don't mean to interrupt, but were you surprised by some of the parts that he wrote here, where he commented on your perception, and then he said, "Well, this is what I really found out"? I found that particularly striking.
I hated him when he did all that research. I have argued so many nights with him on the phone. How dare you bother my friends or people I knew? How dare you do this? And then I understood, though, because he had to do this. Even when he found out I was younger, because I tried to go by an older age all my life, I did. And I hated him for that. And then I realized, he said it has to be done that way, and he finally convinced me. Every little thing was a little bit chipping away, like the poem. No, you're not getting this poem. It's mine. It was not to be seen by anyone else. And finally, after 6 months, I gave it, and I thought, and I prayed about it too, and spoke to Desiree and the family about it, and they said, well, it's beautiful. Why don't you let them print it? So we decided to do it. I finally decided to do it. And then the publisher and Derry contacted Graceland. I don't know why. It was unbeknownst to me. I would not have contacted him personally, because I don't think anyone should own anything about everyone in the world, their voice, their likeness, a letter that was written to me and given to me by Elvis. That's bad, I think. They refused to let us print it, and that hurt me more after being convinced to let the publisher print it. So I'm very hurt about that, but it is explained in the book, Are You Lonesome Tonight, that they refused. And maybe at one point very soon we will show it to the world, because I would like for them to see it now. How dare them say that it doesn't exist when they refuse to let us do it?
I was curious about one thing. I know we're running out of time, but Desiree, you and I are maybe just a half a generation too young to have been in Elvis's prime. And we probably started growing up on the kind of music that immediately followed his peak of popularity. Did you listen to Elvis records when you were growing up? Did you enjoy his music?
I was never into the rock and roll of Elvis. I loved his ballads. I studied piano for many years and played a lot of them on the piano. And I did enjoy hearing them. Impossible Dream, Love Me Tender, all of his slower ballad-type music. I loved that.
Do you like his movies?
Some of them, a lot of them are very silly, but and he hated doing them. He really did, because it portrayed him in something, that he wasn't
Elvis. He wasn't Elvis in the movie. He was not the Elvis, the man that I knew. He wanted to portray that kind of person he was so badly. I spoke to Desiree and everyone that loved him, and still do, about that. And he really planned on doing something about that and getting into a more serious vein.
What do we think? Lucy's asking, Lucy's answering a lot of questions, so is Desiree. Gosh, I wish Lucy was still around, so we could have some conversations with her. And I'm hopeful that I'm going to be able to get Desiree over on our channel. It's not that she doesn't want to, but she may not be able to contractually. That's all I can say about that. But, you know, we had a 2 hour and 40-minute conversation, or 2 hours and 30-minute conversation, something like that. And she was very forthright. She definitely wants to, you know, vindicate her mom and get her birthright. She doesn't care about the money. She just does not. She never has. Or in the last 40, 50 years, you would see her continually in the spotlight like some others that are out there. And she's not. She's very private. So I hope that we can continue, and hopefully we can help her. I always have to say if, and Derry gives me a hard time. If the story is true, if Desiree is Elvis's daughter, I hope we can be helpful, right? I just have to say that because I wasn't there. I wasn't there when she was conceived. I wasn't there when Lucy gave birth. I wasn't there during the meetings with Elvis. You know, I wasn't there during any of it. None of us were. We can only choose to believe or not to believe. I've got my own opinion, and y'all probably can see where I'm leaning and where I've been leaning. And I want to know yours. I do. And I know there's naysayers that hop on here and they're negative. And hey, be negative, but please provide something besides just an opinion. But provide an informed opinion. You know, sources, something that can, in a sense, discount the story. Like, they have to be documented, though. And that doesn't mean you can't come on and comment. I'm saying you can comment and disagree. But to be taken more seriously by everybody else, including me, it would be great. I'm looking both ways, right? And we're going to have another conversation over in Rare Elvis Photos with Derry Matera as well. All right, TCB TLC. This is Rare Elvis Photos. Well, actually, this is Elvis and the Legends and the sister channel, Rare Elvis Photos.